Well, that's weird. I thought I had my music turned on, but I guess I did not. So it was a very silent start to my day. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? A little disjointed. Gonna get things straightened out here real quick. Uh, just separating out my windows here. I normally try to do this before I get started, but we're running up against the time wall this morning, so just a hair behind, but not much. I think we'll be good here. I just need to pull up this last one and get it going, and then we'll be good to go. I think it's a daylight savings time thing. You know what I mean? Maybe not. Because today, episode 92, is the daylight savings time celebration because we got an extra hour of sleep this weekend, which is always kind of nice. I am not a fan of daylight savings time. I wish it would just keep it. I've been places where they don't follow it, and you know what? They seem to survive just fine. I think the reasons that we used to have it are really non-existent in today's society. So not a fan, especially in the springtime when you have to move that clock up and you lose that extra hour of sleep. So not a fan of that. Okay, why do I have an extra one here? I've got extra boards. I'm like, how did they get separated and moved around? So yeah, not a fan, but if I have to do one, the fall change is better because I do like to get that extra hour of sleep. Although my dogs, especially my big dog, she doesn't tell time. So to her, it's now time to go out an hour earlier than my clock says. So she's like poking me early in the morning going, hey, it's time to go out. It's time to eat. It's that time. And I'm like, no, it's not. Look at your watch. She doesn't seem to care. Anyway, so I just find that very funny. She doesn't really care. She just knows when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. And time to eat it in the evening. This dog has the most miraculously accurate stomach clock. I mean, that's all I can call it is a stomach clock. She eats, and it's like 12 hours later, she knows it's time to eat again, or I don't know, whatever time it is, not 12 hours, but she knows exactly when it's dinner time and exactly when it's breakfast time. And I never would have to actually look at a watch because she would always clue me in. She's funny that way. All right, well, what is today? Monday. We're back into the groove. Like I said, it was daylight savings time this weekend. I did get some shop time in. I did do a few things. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but I was a little productive. Some of the productivity did not happen in the workshop, but it was workshop related. It was actually on my computer, and I'm going to share that with you in a minute as to what I did. Some of the other things I did was a lot of milling of some boards, because even though I think we left off on Friday with me doing the handholds. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Wow, that was bad. I did not mean to yawn in your face like that. That's ridiculous. I did the handholds on the CNC machine for the zebra wood base, and I got done with that because I did one, and then after the live stream was over, I finished and did the other set. But I got to thinking that just doing these two bases on their own, excuse me, was kind of limiting my shop time and my productivity time. I have a whole bunch of wood, and it's silly for me to, I do the live stream for 2.5 hours. I don't stop working in my workshop after that. That's just how long I generally live stream. But if all I was to do was restrict the products that I'm doing to that period of time, that's really not very productive, and not very productive in terms of me making products to sell. So I went ahead and milled up some more wood, so that I could get some other bases going here. And so I milled up, there's some walnuts. This is some sapelli right here. Sapelli, you say it the way you want to. This is kind of in the mahogany family. This is quarter sawn, which gives it these really cool ribbon stripes through here. So that's really nice. I also have some Paduke, which is very lovely and kind of very orangey looking. But this is really nice stuff. And then I also have like the heavyweight stuff. This is Jatoba, and I'm interested to see how this is going to look with maybe an oil-based finish on here or something. Most of these will not get any stain, which I'm kind of happy about. Most of these will get an oil-based finish. And I actually might be trying a new oil-based finish on these. So I'm kind of excited about that. This is a very long sapelli board. But anyway, I did mill these up, got them flat, got them down to 3/4 of an inch in thickness. And then I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly what products I can make from the boards that I have. And sometimes I know in my head, okay, I want to make these, right? So I know I need exactly this much wood. Sometimes I just say, okay, I've got this piece of wood. What can I get out of that piece of wood? And that's one of the things that I have to figure out today is what can I create out of these already existing milled up boards that I've got here. So that was kind of where I ended my workshop stuff this weekend, was just, like I said, cutting off the wood, flattening the wood, and getting it ready for sizing up. So I'm going to be doing some more cutting over on the miter saw. I'm going to have to create basically just blanks like this so that I've got side pieces and I've got front and back pieces. So I'm going to figure those out. We can also do some joinery on the zebra wood because it's ready for joinery because the handles are done. The other ones, once I get the little short pieces, I still have to do the handles over on the CNC, and then I have to figure out, do I want to have any logos put onto the front of them, or do I just want to leave them plain? So we see, I may just leave them all plain for this particular run. Because a lot of this stuff is what I would call premium hardwoods, so I'll already be charging a higher price for them. I charge a higher price for premium wood than I do for things like oak and cherry, which are non-premium woods. In my the hickory was as well. And basically, I draw the line at anything really above like $7 a board foot, kind of creeps into that premium. So walnut, definitely. The $19 a board foot for the zebra, absolutely. But so even some of these others, they come out of the exotic wood categories, and being an exotic wood category means it's going to have a higher price, which means I'm going to charge more for that product. So these will already be higher priced items that might limit their sale as well. I mean, I appreciate the fact that walnut is a much more premium wood than cherry or oak, and therefore deserves a more premium price, but someone buying it may not. They may say, that's just too much to spend. So a lot of times it's just a matter of getting the right person who understands the quality of the wood that they're purchasing, and not just the product, but also the materials that create that product. And they're higher end materials, so you have to have the person who understands that. Some people would just be happy with like, oh, it's made out of pine. I don't care. I just want something to put my sewing machine in. And I get that. I don't do that, but I understand where they're coming from. But anyway, so hey, kind of like along those lines though, I think a spider is biting me or something. Along those lines, so the other thing I did this weekend was looked at some options for changing how I sell my stuff. And I discussed this. If you go back and watch last Friday's live stream, you'll see at the very beginning of the live stream, I was talking about my frustrations with selling on Facebook. And I'm not going to rehash all that, just to understand that there are some aspects to the Facebook platform that I find frustrating, and there are some confusing aspects, I guess, for the customers who are trying to purchase, that there's some disconnects there that makes the whole process more difficult. And the other option I have is to use Etsy, and that's fine. Etsy's not bad. It has a couple of quirky things, but overall, I would say that Etsy's not a bad platform to sell on. But what Etsy does do is takes a middleman fee, and which I can't blame them for that. That's, they're providing a service and they charge you a fee for it. But I am, like, when I sell a high-end dollar value item, like my table that I just sold, say I list a table for $500, I'm giving, a large chunk of that to them because they're taking that percentage of that sale, and that's just money out of my pocket that I could be keeping. So my thought was, I need to look at maybe having my own e-commerce site. I want something that was kind of based in the same setup, where people could go in, see the products, look through photos. I want them to be able to click a add to cart button. I want them to be able to hit the buy button, pay with their credit card or other options, and have that generate information to me so that I can say, great, ship your product to you, and then that product will be off the market for being sold because it's already sold. And so it's not going to be confusing. When I have stuff on Facebook, I'll have multiple people telling me, I want this, I want to buy this, or whatever. And depending on when I see their message, I feel like I'm not being fair to people. Oh, I saw this message first, or whatever. It gives them false hope that they're going to get it. And then when I respond back, like hours later, and say, sorry, someone else already got that one. And I don't like that experience. I wouldn't like that if I was buying, and I don't like that experience for the people who are buying from me. Whereas if you go to a store and it says there's one and somebody buys it, well, you're not going to say, I want to buy that, because it's gone. And you'll only look at the items that are there. So that's the beauty of having a store. So I looked at several different options. There's different companies that make e-commerce sites, or they make personal websites that you can add e-commerce function into. And like I'm sure you've all seen ads for Squarespace. That's probably one of the big ones. There's a few of them that are made really for giving you creativity options when you're setting up and creating your site. But B, there's some of them that are really good at creating e-commerce sites. I think Shopify has an e-commerce website set up as well. So one of the things I had to look at was, okay, well, how much do I actually sell, and what do I want to spend on a website? Because, if I'm spending more than I ever would give to Etsy for listing my stuff, that doesn't make sense. If you have a really big website where you're selling tons of product, then spending $30 a month probably isn't that big a deal, because you're more than recouping what you would have paid to a third-party Etsy-ish type person, or eBay or whoever. You more than recoup that. But when you're smaller like me, and I'm like, okay, well, would I sell $30 worth of commission stuff on Etsy in a month? Probably not, because it could be a month or two in between when I have product on the site, and it didn't make sense. But the other thing is, I wanted to make sure that I had features. I wanted to be able to have an add to cart. I want to be able to have multiple photos. I want to be able to have multiple payment options. I want to have some liberal shipping options. And so what I came down to was a website called Weebly, or a company called Weebly, Weebly. And they are actually teamed with Square. Square is the little payment thing that you can slide your card through if you're a home vendor, and you've seen a lot of these people. They have the little thing in their iPads or whatever, and they boop in it. So that's Square. Square is a credit card money taking entity, for any lack of a better word, and they're a financial service company, and they've teamed with Weebly to create these e-commerce sites, and they actually they have a personal $6 option a month, which is almost nothing. So you could pay, and you can pay that annually. So that's what, $72 a year, which is really minimal when you think about fees and such that you pay to other companies. I won't even discuss eBay. eBay takes 10%. I sell a $150 base. They're taking 15 bucks out of it right off the top, not even including shaving off the other stuff from shipping and everything else. Which is another issue that, like, why would they take a percentage when that's actual shipping costs being calculated? That's not money I get, so they shouldn't get a percentage, but they do. They take a percentage of that. So it's really, I hate eBay. eBay's evil. They've grown to be an evil monster. But anyway, so I did my research, landed on Weebly. They have several different tiers of service, and the one that I landed on is slightly up from the personal one, but not crazy expensive, but it gave me all the options that I wanted. And I thought this morning what I will do is I'm going to show you, let me get on my page here, and I'm going to show you, if I can find it, there we go. So I set up a page. That's what I did for most of my morning on Saturday, was to set up a page to sell my products. And it's not super fancy. I kept it very simple. I didn't want it to be confusing. I didn't want it to be too much information coming at you at one time. So I broke it into basically a landing page, which this is the landing page. So it's got my JR's shop up here. The address, by the way, I didn't put it in the info. I really should have. Is jrswoodshop.com. So it's the same name I use all over the place here, but it's what my Facebook page, not the one I sell on, but my woodworking page is JR's Woodshop, and I already owned this URL, so it was really easy for me to just say, hey, use this URL that I already paid $12 a year for from Google. So sewing machine bases right here. If you look down, there is and it's got a nice little splash screen open page, and it shows a sewing machine base right there. I mean, it's not hard to figure out what that is, right? New bases for your machines that you love. That's my little tagline there. And then you can hop in and hit the shop. Now, also in here, there's a little section at the bottom. If you have questions, you can throw in your name and your email address and send me a question. And you can also sign up for a newsletter. Now, I don't have a newsletter right now, but I'm hoping once I build a customer base, I will send out a newsletter just kind of giving people an idea of what I'm working on and things that might be coming down the road. So if they're interested, if they have more than one machine that they're wanting to buy something for, they can kind of get that information through a newsletter. I'm not going to sell anything through there or anything else. I'm not looking to, sell their information. It's just an easy way for me to put information out there. So that's the three different components to that front page. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see all the payment options down here. I can't really necessarily see those because they're really small. But the nice thing is that you can use Google Pay, you can use Apple Pay, you can pay with a credit card, and I think you can also use the Cash App. The only thing you can't use for the option I have is PayPal. I'm not sure why that is, but PayPal is like the next tier up of service payment. And I don't know why that one is on a higher tier, but honestly, the percentage that PayPal takes from a sale is higher than all these other ones. So that's okay. If PayPal's not an option, that's okay. Most people actually just use their card when they pay through PayPal. They don't use their PayPal account, like money they have in their account to pay. They just use their card. So I'm cool with that. They can just use their card on here, and it pays through. This is using the Square interface. But anyway, so if you click on the Shop Now button right here, hang on, my mouse is like, I'm across the room. So if you click on Shop Now, it takes you into my inventory. My inventory is broken into 3 different categories. So you can, like if you were selling shirts, you could break it into long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, cotton shirts, silk shirts. I mean, you can break it into a whole bunch of categories. You can have subcategories. I just kept 3 basic ones, which is what I do right now. So I have 3/4 bases, which is for the smaller machines that I make bases for. I have 301 bases, which is a completely different base for just 301 machines. And then I have full-size bases. So if you want to break it into, hey, I just want a full-size base, what do you have available for that? You can see, so if I said 3/4 bases, and I click that, you'll see I only have 1 base that is set for a 3/4 size. If you click on, oops, sorry, I went too far. If you click on like full-size bases, well, now there's more options because I have more of those for sale right now. So I have 6 of those items for sale. If you click on one of those items, so I'll just click this one right here. It's really nice. So basically it gives you the title over here on the right, full-size base with storage in white oak for Singer machines. I put all that in there for SEO purposes, which is search engine optimization. I want them to be able to find my stuff if people are searching the internet. And I need to do more SEO on here because I really need this to have a lot of discoverability if people are searching the internet for a sewing machine base. I want mine to pop to the top, right? But anyway, there's a description down here, which just basically covers what it is. There's photos. You can click through the photos, or you can click on them and get a larger version of the photo. And so I don't know how many, I don't know if I'm limited to the number of photos, but as you can see, these are the way I do photos. I just try to give as many different views of the item itself so that they have an idea of what it is they're paying for. I even shoot the bottom of it so they can see what that looks like. And then I can close that window. More importantly, like Google Pay is the one that's like right off the bat, it's like, hey, you can pay with GPay. I don't know why they don't have an Apple Pay button anyway. But you can also click Add to Cart. It will add it to your cart. You can look at the shipping options. So shipping is something that if you wanted to have calculated shipping, which is nice on Etsy, I have calculated shipping. You can put your zip code in and it'll tell you what, depending on the shipping choice that you want, what it will be. But I kind of went a different way. I don't know if people will like this or not, but I looked at what I generally pay. All of my stuff comes in the same size box, okay? It's a 22 by 10 by 6 inch box. And they all weigh somewhere between, depending on the base that's inside, between 3 to 6 pounds. My typical shipping costs are between $10 for something going on the East Coast, maybe a little less if it's like right in my backyard, but typically East Coast is $10, West Coast is $20. I'm charging a flat shipping fee of $15 for priority 2-day/3-day shipping. If it's like going to Eugene, Oregon, it might be 3 days. If it's going to Dallas, Texas, it might be 2 days, right? But anyway, so I'm charging a flat fee. So my thought is that's a nice average right between the two, between the 10 and 20 that I'm usually paying, or somewhere in between. That also allows for the fact that, yes, I'll lose a little money going west, I'll make a little money staying east, but in general, it gives me a little extra money for shipping costs, because what I don't add on there are the cost of the boxes that I use, because I don't just find boxes at the landfill. I actually buy specific size boxes to ship my stuff in. I buy huge rolls of bubble wrap to ship my stuff in, and all these things cost a bit of money, right? So I'm basically trying to say, okay, here's your shipping costs. It might be a little more for some, a little less for some, but in general, I think it's going to average out that I'm going to be able to hopefully get a little extra to pay for the additional shipping costs. That would be the handling. When people say shipping and handling, usually handling is referring to the cost of the shipping materials and such. I don't charge handling. Some people charge a flat handling fee. But like I said, instead of just doing the whole, okay, trying to individually calculate all this stuff. And here's the other thing. I'm still fleshing this out, and it's still a little new to me. So this might change down the road, but I decided starting now, I would just do a flat fee. I'm not going to do free shipping, because if I did free shipping, I would just have to add that cost onto the base. And for whatever reason, that's a psychological barrier to people. They associate shipping fees and product fees completely differently from each other. They don't ever look at the total price. They always look at the price of the product and the price of the shipping as two separate things. If I charge $10 for shipping and $100 for an item, if I just did free shipping and made that $110, they might be like, woo, that's great. But if I said, hey, you can buy it for $100 but only pay $10 shipping, they'd be like, oh, that's a better deal. I don't know why it is, but they've done studies on this, and there are studies that show that people are more apt to buy if it's free shipping, and there's studies to show it's more apt to buy if the shipping is separate from the item. I don't know. Like I said, this is fluid and it might change for me, but right now I'm starting with a flat fee. I try to keep my price low, and then that shipping cost will be what it is. I don't know. If you have suggestions, please throw them my way, because like I said, this is something that I'm playing with and I'm moving towards. At some point in time, like right now, all of the bases you see on here are listed on Facebook. They are not listed on Etsy at the moment. And I might end up listing these on Etsy to just clear this out. And these new ones might be the ones that are solely on this new website. And I will publish this all over my Facebook page, and I will publish this and have it pushed to a lot of the user groups. That's where a lot of people are anyway. There's user groups that are like 25,000 people strong for vintage sewing machines. And so if I can spread the word that way, that's great. If I can get the SEO built up so that if people just want to search the internet for a sewing machine base, my stuff will pop up and they will be able to locate me that way as well. So it'll take a little time for this to get traction, and I understand that. And that's why I'm not going to abandon my Etsy page, because if things just aren't selling, I'll list them on Etsy. I know they'll sell on my Etsy page. I already have an Etsy following, but and unfortunately I can't go into Etsy and say, hey, go to my new page, because Etsy wouldn't really appreciate that. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've got this new page. I think it's really cool. I like the way it looks. I'm very happy with the setup of it. I'm happy with the way that it displays the photos in here, and that you can do individual searches, and that you can search for all items, or the little categories I've set up. I really do like this setup on here, and I need somebody to buy one so I can make sure it works all the way through. But in the meantime, I'm going to try this. I'm going to push this address out to my Facebook sewing machine page and see if I can get anybody interested in buying that way. I may take all of the things for sale right now on my page and unsell them, take them off as for sale listings, just list them as I have these items available for sale on my page, and then let them hit that link and go through there. And that might be how I test this. I really need a couple of purchases on here to make sure this is working right. I don't know if it is or not. Hopefully it is. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, because I thought that was kind of a cool way of doing things. And hopefully it'll give me more control. I'm going to switch back to the normal one. Hopefully it gives me more control in the cradle to grave of the process. I am the maker, the seller, the distributor. I mean, it starts and ends with me, and I'm not going to hand off anything to Etsy or eBay or Facebook Facebook doesn't take any of my money. They just make life difficult for me. So I'm hoping to eliminate the difficulties, keep more money in my pocket, but still give the same service and the same products to people. So there you go. That's what I did on Saturday. And I spent quite a while just setting that up and working through some of the options and stuff. Like I said, this was through Weebly, Weebly. And it's probably the most economical of e-commerce options available for small shops and sellers. So if that's you, I would say give it a look. Setting up the page was not bad. They have templates that you can go from and kind of figure it out. They have a little thing that says, okay, let us help you figure it out. Or, what are you selling? Or what are you, I mean, and this is for people who are selling a service, selling a product. Is it for local pickup? Is it for, that's the other big thing, is a lot of, so if you're, say you're a cupcake store, right? And you're like, oh, we need to have an online presence to sell our cupcakes because we get people coming in, but we could be selling more if people knew and they could buy online and have local pickup. And so you can do things like that as well and transition into more of a, instead of a brick and mortar, crossover into that e-commerce space, incorporate the two. You can even set up like curbside pickup and stuff. They have options for that. So it's really pretty powerful for what you pay. And I'm hoping that down the road, this will pay dividends to me because, like I said, I'm just going to be handing over less money, and it will make things easier for my customers to find what they want, just buy it, and not have to worry about, communication issues with me. Gosh, did he see my message or whatever? I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking maybe I got this base, maybe I didn't. That's my Facebook issue. That and sometimes my customers don't understand the directions I put in there, and I try to keep it simple, but sometimes there's a disconnect. And I don't know, maybe it's how I'm saying to do things. Maybe it's the fact that people don't read all the way through a listing. They just see the first thing and go, "Ooh, I want that," and they click the "I want it" button, but they don't follow the directions that are listed in each item. So it makes things easier for them. They say, everybody's used to shopping online by now. Ooh, I want that. I add it to my cart. I pay for it. Done. That's what I want. And hopefully this will be the solution for that. Okay. How are we doing here? I'm doing pretty good. It's actually kind of warm in the shop. I've had heaters going all morning because it was a little chilly, but it's actually warming up nicely outside. It's like 60 outside. It was 45 when I came down this morning, but it is warmed up nicely outside. I think it's going to be a nice, lovely day. It's quite pretty out and blue skies and a little bit of breeze, but 60 is not a bad deal. So let's see, where are we now? Well, now I just have to figure out where I need to step to with this stuff. I think one of the easy things I could do is get some of the zebra stuff put into clamps. Well, I take it back. I have to cut joinery. I would also have to sand the insides of these. I don't go crazy on the inside, but I would need to sand them, get the joinery cut, and get them into clamps, and then I can work on figuring out which bases I'm going to make out of these things. I've kind of done some of that preliminarily. That's never going to sound right coming out of my mouth, so I'm not going to say it anymore. I've already done some of that up front in trying to figure out what I want to get out of here, but I need to finalize that and then do some cut-ups over on the saw over here. So why don't we start with the joinery cuts for these bases. I'll do the joinery, then I'll sand the insides, and then we will put some glue on and slap them in clamps. Oh, that being said, I forgot about my clamps. The other thing I did on Friday was I made a couple of different lids for these things. For one of them. One of them is going to have a lid for the storage compartment. And what I did, because I didn't have a piece that was wide enough to turn my screen brightness down. I didn't have a piece that was wide enough for me to to use for a lid, what I did was I glued up strips that were cut off of the edges, and I thought those looked pretty good. What am I going on here? There we go. So this is one of them, and let me put the clamps down here. But I did two of them, and I think what I'm going to do is include both of these with the base. I'll just cut them both down to size once I'm at that point, and then just give them options and say, here's two. Pick one that you like. So they have an option. So this was one of them. Let me, I got my close-up camera here. So it looks kind of cool, right? I mean, the nice thing about this zebra wood is that the grain kind of goes everywhere anyway. So doing these strips, really, that's pretty nice. It's not bad. I tried to do the center piece here. I don't even know what I did here. There's like one thin strip here in the middle, and then two fatter ones and fat ones and two thin ones or whatever. I just tried to mix it up and make it look good. So that one, I like that a lot. I also thought, well, you know what? Maybe I could do some accent pieces in the middle just because. And so I did this one. And let's take this one out of the clamps real quick. Get this out. Get this one out. Go. All right. So this is the second one I did, which is two pieces of maple accenting in the middle. And you can see I did a nice cool little like a thing right here where these two pieces kind of the grain met in the middle. But I like this. I thought this was interesting and kind of cool. So what I will do is when I have the pocket made, I use a rabbet bit to cut a pocket for the lids to go into, and these will get cut down to fit that. But what I'll do is I'll make sure that I cut equal amounts off of each side and size this so that it's centered and balanced. This one doesn't really matter, but this one right here matters a little bit. So we'll keep this kind of centered and looking cool. But I thought those were kind of two interesting options for doing a lid for this particular base. So yeah, I did that on Friday. I think we glued those up. We cut them and glued them. And they turned out pretty nice. Because I was thinking, I'll have to get my clamps out. I was like, oh wait, I have stuff in the clamps. All right, let me get the tape off of here. So those will get cleaned up and turned into lids a little bit further down the road, but I just wanted to show those off because they're kind of fun. And now, what time is it? All right, so I'm going to take a quick break. I have to run inside for just a moment. So give me a second. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back, and then we will get down to cutting some joinery for these things. So hang on just a moment. Okay, I also had to fix my Spotify, which was being really stupid. I don't know what its deal was, but it was hung up, so I had to restart that during the break. So that's why you heard the music come on. If you're watching, you heard the music come on during the break. I'm not sure why it didn't want to turn on, but it's okay. All right, so what I'm doing is setting up the table saw over here to do some joinery. And we're going to use basically a rabbet cut. So a rabbet is kind of like a dado on the edge of a board, for lack of a better term. But it's a pretty good joint. There's a lot of different things that you could do when you're making a box if you wanted to. You could, of course, use something like a dovetail. You could use something like a box joint or finger joint. You could switch your camera so people could see what you're doing. That would be better. You could do a miter joint where they come in at a 45 together. And then you need to do something like splines in the corner to give them some stability. For this, I'm going to use the traditional joinery, which is the basically the rabbet cut. And what I'm going to do is figure out where the front of this board is here. Make this one. You need to figure out which one's the front and the back, but I'll use this as the front face. It's pretty. Like this one. Okay, so what you would do is on this board right here, you're going to take out a chunk of the wood that will be basically the width will be the same width as this end piece. So about 3/4 of an inch. So from here to here, we'll measure in 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to leave a 1/4 of an inch of material on the back of that cut. And that in itself will give me a nice little ledge for this to sit in and be glued into. There's a lot of surface there. There's 2 edges for wood to bond to. So you can bond on here and you can bond on here. So you get 2 edges that'll be getting that glue bond. And honestly, I think that works pretty well. I'm going to mark these with a F on the front because I just figured this would be the front. So I need to put an F on here, and then I need to figure out which one is going to be the back. I think this will be the back, right? Well, I've already got the front, and then this is going to be the face of the back. I like to establish this right off the bat so that I can always kind of keep my boards oriented the same direction. And also it's helpful when you're making your cuts that you need to know, am I cutting this on the inside of the board, because you don't want to cut your joinery, your rabbet on the face. That would do you no good. Don't ask me how I know that, because I've made that issue before, that mistake. What I am going to do is get a couple of different measuring tools so that I can basically figure out how deep this cut should be. Like I said, I want to leave a 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'll be cutting a 1/2 an inch high on there. These boards are 3/4 of an inch thick. And I will verify that now. Yeah, 0.7595, so within 1/1000th of an inch. 0.7565. So within 1/1000th of an inch, these things are pretty much 3/4 of an inch thick. I want my cut height to be a 1/2 an inch. So I'm going to have to figure out, well, how is that? It's not easy to figure that out necessarily. There are some gauges that like straddle, and then you can push down to the tooth. And those are good, but not all these teeth are the exact same height. So I kind of try to get it as close as I can. And one of the things I can do to make sure is I'm going to set this to 0.5 inches. And this is just a digital caliper here. But by doing that, I can get a really accurate measurement for my other gauge here. There we go, that's close enough. And then what I would do is I'll set this one so that I'm getting, there's a little tail that comes out here, which lets you do like a depth measurement. So I'm going to set that. That's now 1/2 inch exactly. There are lines on here, but I just like to use this. To me, it's more accurate, and I'm really trying to be accurate when I do this. Now what I will do is I'll take this piece and slide it up in here and lower my saw until it should be about this height. Now see, it's still, I can turn that saw with this thing, so I know it's not quite there. That might be it. And then I'm going to take a test cut, because that's the easiest way to figure out how accurate are you. Just make a test cut. Just get some scrap wood. And this scrap wood does not need to be 3/4 of an inch thick. It just needs to be a flat board, because I'm measuring the depth of my cut, not the depth of the board. So I'm just going to find a piece of wood with a flat edge. This is fine. And I'm going to get my I'll get my miter gauge out here so we can push this straight through. This, I'm going to keep this flat down, and then I'm just going to cut one pass through there, and then that'll give me exactly what I need to know, because I'll measure it. I'll measure the depth of that cut that it made. If I've got a little space, I'll raise the blade. If this is not touching the bottom, I'll know it's too deep, and I can lower it down and make another pass. All right, let me get my ears on, and I'll make one cut, and then we'll go from there. All right, so all I did was make a little cut right here. There's a little ledge right here, and I'm going to put my market gauge. You could use a ruler. I mean, you could take just a simple ruler. You don't have to be super exact. You could take a ruler and just look and say, oh, it looks like a 1/2 inch to me. I'm just trying to get these as accurate as I can, and I'm going to look through and see. Wow, that's really, whew, that is pretty darn close, but I've got a little space here. So I could actually go a little bit deeper. I've got a little space between this blue area right here and the bottom. So it's not quite touching. It's about a 32nd of an inch. So I'm just going to raise this up just a tiny bit. And I'm going to make another pass here. And we'll see if that is better. Let's check. Now, because I wasn't deep enough, I could just cut on the same spot. If I was too deep, the first one, I would have to move over and cut a new section. But let me see now. Right there yet? Still not quite there yet. I'm going to come up just a hair more. Okay, we're going to try this again. Let me get this in place. So the bottom line is, the more time I spend setting this up now, you know, it just pays dividends down the road. So take your time setting things up, because we're going to make repeated cuts. That's perfect right there. We're going to make repeated cuts, and this just allows me to get, you know, the exact measurement I need. All right, I'm going to take this board as the face, which means I need these cuts to be on the inside of each corner here. I need one here, and I need one here. but on the inside of the board. This is the outside, this is the inside. So you always want to make sure that you're keeping your orientation the right way. Now, how do I know how far over that cut needs to be? Well, I grab one of these inboard pieces that has the handle cut in it. I'm going to set it down like this, and I'm just going to put this piece of wood right here, like this, against it, and then that tells me how deep my cut needs to be. So I'm just going to mark it with a pencil like that. And then what I like to do is just use my finger as a guide and then kind of just draw a line about 1/4 of an inch down. And then just kind of like X this out a little bit, just so that I know that this is the material I'm removing. It just keeps it straight in my mind so you can see, hopefully, that little area that I've drawn a little rectangular block in there. But like I said, that block is, we already know what 1/2 inch deep looks like. So I just mark this line here, and that's where I start. Now, because I want one of these on each end, I can't just flip the board. You want to make sure you don't flip the board this way. And you can't draw that thing on this side because then you won't see it when you push it through. So what you have to do is turn the board around this way, always keeping the outer face facing up, right? Now I'm going to draw that same thing on here. Draw my line on here. I'm going to draw my little helper just to kind of give me that little visual for myself. All right, and now I know when I turn it around, I always have the face facing up, but I've got my cut mark on this side. I'll spin it around, get my cut mark on this side, and that will give me my 2 interior cuts for the joinery here. I've done this a lot, so trust me, I've screwed this up before. That's how I find it to be the easiest way to do it. And then I like to start on my inside of my cut. So I will find that pencil line that I marked with the edge, and I will cut that first. And then I will work my way out. So I cut that one, and then I will start pushing the board this way and making cuts to remove the rest of the material out. I could take the time to put a dado blade in here, but that's really a waste of time for what I'm doing. Okay, so you can see now that I've basically just created a rabbit right in there, right? You can see that, right? So you can see that rabbit cut. And then what I will do is take my board, my end piece, set it inside there, and just make sure that it's deep enough. I should feel just a tiny bit of the outside. I should feel just this edge, just past that board. If I did it right, that allows me to square it up later with a plane. I don't want it set too far in, just have a little bit of overhang, and that's perfect. But you can see that that makes a really nice looking joint right there. And then I'm going to cut the exact same thing on the other side. I'll turn it around. If you saw when I did this, when I passed it through the first time, I take it off, move it out, and then I set it up for the next pass. All the other ones I just ran through like this, right? And I just kept moving it over. That first one, because I don't want to mess up that first line by pulling it back through the saw and have it maybe cut in too far if it slips or whatever. So I always cut the first one, take it off. Now I've got space in here, so I'm not worried about it not being exact when I pull it back. But that first one, I always pull it off. It just gives me that little extra bit of assurity that I'm not gonna screw it up by dragging it back through the saw. Okay. All right, I've got this one matched up. Let's go ahead and get the cut done. I'm just going to check the depth on this one. I might have missed that a little bit. So this one I might need to cut that again. So it might be a little shy, and it is. This one's a little. So what happens is if the end piece is sticking up farther than this little piece right here, when it comes time to flatten this whole edge, I have to remove a whole bunch of material off of here, as opposed to if this piece is sticking out more, I just have to remove this little bit of material to make it flat with the rest of the face. So that's why I like him to stick in just a little bit further. And I just missed my pencil mark here. It's kind of interesting. So I'm just going to come back and hit this one more time, kind of just finesse that edge. Okay, so that's the inside of this one. You can see that we've got that mark there, we've got one there, and then what we're going to do is the same thing on the back piece. All right, so I'm going to pull out this back piece and make sure that I know this is the back, this is the top of the back. So my first cut is going to be here. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it on end. I'm going to grab an end piece and grab a different end piece. Grab this one. They should all be the same though. Shouldn't really matter. All right, and I'm just going to mark my line across here. And like I said, I just like to just finger this about 1/4 of an inch high, and then it gives me a visual of, oh, look, that's the area I'm going to remove. I'm going to switch it around, do the exact same thing. It's not hard to get screwed up when you're doing these kind of cuts, to get upside down and backwards. So anything you can do to really let yourself be aware of your cutting areas, I highly encourage it. And that's coming from someone who has screwed these up more than once. Just because you get kind of in a hurry or whatever. All right, I gotta get that cut lined up there. My glasses aren't working so well today. There we go. That should be perfect. Let's give that a try. Okay, so now I have, do this over here, slide this in this way. here, and like this. And there we go. So that is the makings of the box joinery right there. You can see it kind of looks like a box, right? So that's all there is to that. All these will need to be sanded on the inside before we get going. I'm going to move them over to the workbench and grab this other one. This will be a smaller base. Oh, I take that back. Hang on. We have to do one thing. So because this one gets this one is the longer one, this one actually does get a, what am I trying to say? A storage compartment. I need to actually cut the slot for the storage compartment on here. And that storage compartment needs to, well, the space on the inside for my base needs to be a certain length. And then the storage compartment can be whatever's left over. So what I do is get my pen or my tape ruler. I line these up. So this is my back piece, my front piece, because you want to make sure you're having it going in the same spot, right? So when I'm looking at this from the front, my machine will take up this space right here, and then my storage is on this end. That's the way, because this will be the back of the machine. So I want the storage underneath the back of the machine. So this will be my front. This space from here to where that next piece of wood goes in is got to be 14 3/4 inches. So what I do is I line up my front and my back like this, and I get them all lined up there. And I'm just going to draw a line on here that is 14 3/4 inches. So I'm going to mark this to start with at 14 3/4. Then I'm going to get my my level here, or not my level. I'm going to get my square. I'm going to flip this board over. And the reason I'm flipping this board over is because when I push this through the saw, I'm going to see my mark on this side, not on this side. So I need to make sure that they are in the same area. So get them lined up here, and then put this on that mark and mark that half. That's where this is where one of my cuts is going to go. Now, to determine the other cut, what I do is I take the piece that's actually going to physically live in the middle, and I put it up here, and that's going to be my cut line. So I mark that. That gives me my width of cut. This is going to be a true dado cut. A dado cut is one that goes across the grain through the middle of a board. These are going to be dado cuts. I am going to draw my little 1/4 inch mark there, and I'm going to mark the wood that's going to be removed. I just kind of scribble it out. It gives me that visual indicator of where that cut needs to take place. I don't want to get confused at this point, especially on a board that costs $19 a board foot. All right. So now I can look at it. I've got my little F facing right here. I know this is the top of my base. This is the front facing me. And I know that this cut is going to happen on the right-hand side on the same sides as these dados. All of those things need to be taken into consideration when you're doing this. I'm going to, now this is going to be a finesse cut. So I'm going to start it, but then I'm going to work close to that right edge, and then I'm going to just walk it in to get a perfect fit for that board right there. So let's get one cut, and then we'll make a few more. Okay. So really what I do is I make the cut just to the insides of the lines, and then I start sneaking up on that cut. I want this to be I don't want it to be like so tight that I can't get the board in there, but it needs to be tight enough that you're not getting a wobble space in here. I want this to be a pretty decent fit inside there so that you get a really nice looking joint. So this one's done. I'm going to grab the other one, looking for my cut line right here with my B over here. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to line this up. We'll start there, and then I'll work my way outwards. And then when I get close to that, we'll start measuring and making sure we get just the right fit. Okay, I have to I have to say that this is where having a zero clearance fence makes all the difference in the world. Because if you just had a wide open throat around this, or not a fence, a zero clearance plate. If you had a wide open throat around this plate, it would be really hard for you to walk that in and really see. But I have a line that is cut basically to the exact dimensions of my blade, so I can just see and nudge it over a little bit. It makes it so much easier. So if you don't have a zero clearance plate for your saw, you really should consider getting one. All right, I'm going to put this together, so to speak, to give you an idea of what it will look like when it is assembled. So there you go. That is, in essence, that's the board. There's the storage compartment, the main compartment. That is pretty much the construction of this thing. Now, the next one I do is just a simple base, so it does not have this part over here. So really all we're going to do is do the two end pieces and it'll be done. This one gets the middle piece. This one was a little looser, but by the time you put glue in there, this is all going to be good. So I'm very happy with the way this turned out. Like I said, you just take your time when you're doing your joinery cuts, keep things square, get your measurements correct, and you will have a much better product in the end. I need to see which one of these is going to be the front and the back. I'm going to say, ooh, this is going to be my front, and this will be my top. I'm going to draw my F on here just so I can keep this straight. And then this, okay, this is a better top surface. I'm going to make that the outside. So I'm going to make this my back. Not easy to see on the zebra woods. That's why I go over it several times. All right, so now I know where my front and my back is. I can just grab one of these edges, and now I need to mark my thickness on here. And color that in so I know where to cut. Same process. Flip it around this way. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the backboard. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut these. I'm not going to stop in between or whatever. We'll just make things go a little bit faster for us. There we go. Put a line there so I know which. All right. Like I said, if also coloring in your cutout areas, not everybody does that, but or draw an X through it or something. It really does help to keep those cuts straight in your head when you get up to them, especially if you're marking a whole bunch of boards for cutting. You may not remember by the time you get around to that one exactly what you were thinking when you did it. So just kind of color in those cutout areas, and it's just that fast visual reference makes life a lot easier. All right, let me get this one done here. Lined up. This first one cut. And like I said, I'm just going to plow through these so we can get to the sanding part and get this done a little faster. Okay. One thing I should say is when you're doing a base or when you're doing cuts like this, I have a flat tooth, so mine's it has two alternating teeth and then a flat tooth. So it gives me a pretty nice flat surface here. There's a little bit of some scoring lines in between them, but for the most part, it's pretty flat. And the scoring lines are fine because it gives a little bit of extra bite for the glue. But if you don't have if you have a saw blade that just has two alternating angled teeth on it, you might want to invest in a router plane so that you can square up and flatten out those little V indentations that you'll get in between each saw mark, because you will get them. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you get them. So, or invest in a saw blade that has a flat tooth on top. All right, so that's the second one put together. I went through that pretty quickly. I had to make a couple little adjustments, but overall not bad. And then we can take this pile of stuff and we will take it over to the table, and time to do everybody's favorite activity, sanding the wood. Come on, everybody loves sanding wood. You know it. It's true. What a great thing to, more fun than actually sanding the wood is watching someone else sand the wood. Now, come on. You got to know that's more fun than anything, right? All right, well, it's very quiet. It's Monday and the masses are not here. So that's okay. I'm going to pull out the big old Bosch and we're going to get this thing hooked up and fired up. And this one board is really in my way because it's very long. So I'm going to set this off to the side, I think, just for the moment, because we'll get to that in just a minute. But for right now, it's just kind of in the way and not helpful. Neither is not seeing what I'm talking about. So I moved one board so I can have some room here to work. And I'm going to get this out of the way because, well, it's just in the way. All right. So we're going to get all this set up and ready to go. The one nice thing, not the one nice thing, there's lots of nice things about this Bosch sander, but one of the nice things is the cord that this thing has is really, really long. So if you don't want to use an extension cord, you probably don't have to. I think this thing's like 12 feet long. It's quite a long cord for this thing. Let me get my... That being said, I still need to use an extension cord, but you may not need to. And plug that in. What do I have on the bottom of this thing here? I have a 150. I want a 120. Do I have a 120 over here? 240. There's a 120. A little rough, but I think we can use this. Just going to clean off this 120 piece right here a little bit. Now, because this is the inside of the base that we're getting ready to do here, this doesn't have to be the most silky smooth of finishes, but you should still make it look nice and make it feel nice. All right. And I'm going to put these over here. Ooh, my dusty phone. And what I need is my little sanding pad right here. Now, there is the old way of doing this that I usually depend on, which is I grab my pencil and I put some marks on here. I might actually start this off with an 80 grit because it's a little rough. And doing an 80 grit will actually allow me to progress through the different grits a little faster. Starting with a more coarse grit just removes a lot of the larger imperfections in the board. And the more you remove the imperfections, the less there are when you get to the finer grits. And then you're just removing more scratches than anything. So I think from that 120, we're going to give that a break. We're going to start with an 80. I really need to order some more sandpaper too. I have little supplies of this. This is stuff that I got when I bought my saw just to try out. So I don't have a lot. But anyway, all right. Right. Well, I mean, all things being equal, that was actually pretty fast for an 80 grit sanding. And it's done now for both pieces. The 80 grit, not all the sanding. I do need to step this up probably at least 2 more grits, maybe 3. And you know, I apologize. It is what it is, but if you don't take the time now, it's just like everything else. If you don't take the time, it'll show up in the end. So I'm going to take the time, do everything right, but hopefully this won't take too long. I mean, like I said, if you start with your heavy grits, your 120 or your 80, shouldn't need to go to 60. Hopefully your milling equipment is good enough that you shouldn't need to go to 60 grit. 80 is probably more than sufficient. And really what I'm taking out now are milling marks. And or that's what I was taking out. Now I'm moving on to taking out the marks from my 80 grit sandpaper. So that's where we're going to move to my 120 grit. And I'm wondering if I could grab a new 120. I hate doing that, but on the other hand, you know, probably better for me just to step into a 120 grit here that is fresh from the stack. I wish this stuff was a little bit nicer. It's not the best. It was pretty inexpensive. I mean, I think I paid like 16 bucks for the whole variety set, which, yeah, is pretty cheap in terms of sandpaper. I'm probably going to get myself some nice Cling Explorer or something like that, but until I can, this will have to do. So I'm going to have to step through some newer pads. But anyway, let's go to 120. We'll do a 150 and a 240. Okay. Yeah. Make it tight. My hand is getting tired because this is a big beast. It's heavy, and my hand's getting tired. I missed a little spot here. Doggone it. Hang on. Uh, um, I mean, sanding is just one of those things. You're gonna have to suck it up and do the sanding if you want it to look good. And here's the other thing, and go on any fine woodworking YouTube channel, website, whatever, when they're talking about sanding, and the one thing you will always hear them say without fail is do not skip grits. Sand through each one, even though you think, oh, I could go from 120 to 240 because it feels smooth. Um, when you put anything on there, an oil finish, anything that's going to darken that up, you will see that you skipped a step. It will show up. I guarantee it will. And now, if you don't really care about the quality of the finish, then yeah, just do what feels good to your hand and don't worry about it. If it's not anything that you're worried about being a fine woodworking piece of material, a product or whatever, then yeah, you don't need to worry about it. But if quality counts in your book, and if you want people to have the best possible finish on the products you make, you got to take the time. You got to put the work in. You got to sand through the grits. And like I said, go on anybody's website, anybody's YouTube page, um, anywhere where they're talking about fine furniture, fine woodworking, um, you'll see this same advice time and time and time again because it's just the truth. It just holds up. All right, one thing I'm going to do here for at least for these bigger pieces, I'm going to get myself a little clamp. I'm going to make myself just a little less work here. If I clamp my piece down, I can use two hands, and wow, my hands get tired a little quickly. So let me try this, see how this works, and then I'll switch it around. All right, I'm gonna do one more. I mean, I could stop at 150, but because I'm doing a different finish this time, I'm gonna be using, I think, I'm getting ready to order it. I'm gonna be using Odie's oil on this, which is kind of a oil and wax, hard wax finish. So I'm gonna use Odie's oil on this, and the more you sand, the better the sheen and the look of it. So I'm gonna just take this to 240 on the inside. The outside will probably go up to 400, but the inside is gonna go to 240, which I think will be fine. I'll be happy with that. And like I said, the more you sand on these things, the easier it is to take this pencil mark off, because it's a flatter, the surface gets flatter and flatter, and this basically does a more efficient job. So let me get these other ones marked up. It just makes my time go a little faster here if I can get these pre-marked. And then kind of interesting, I've got a little, I'm not gonna worry about it on here, but there's a little bit of tear out on here. I don't know if you can see it or not, right in this area of the board. If this was on the outside, I would be using a cabinet scraper to clean that tear out up. I'm not sure where I got that tear out from. And especially sanding through like I did, but you know, that's the thing. And that's why they make tools like, they make tools like cabinet scrapers, because they help clean up things like that. But anyway, this is 240. Let's go ahead. This should take less time than the last grit, which was actually not that fast or not that slow. So let me get this done. Definitely clamping these longer ones down is super beneficial and helps a lot. All right. That's it for that. Okay, so that's all the way through the grits. I know that was really exciting, but I can also tell you that this feels fantastic. Feels really good, really nice. So yeah, what did I say? Oh, so I am planning on trying a different finish on these. I've been looking at some different stuff, and what I want, oh, I guess I could take these off my head. What I want is something that gives me a little bit of a sheen. I'm not like a glossy person, which is why most all of the stuff that I finish, I do in a semi-gloss. But that being said, a lot of the oily finishes and stuff don't have that much of a gloss or that much of a sheen to them, especially things like Rubio Monocoat and some others. So I want to look at this because I've seen some good feedback. Hang on a second. So people who do, I think where this stuff comes in handy is if you're doing smaller projects. I know people are saying if it's a big project that really isn't worth the effort and the time to put into it. I mean, it's not a super long process, but it does take a little bit of time to make it all come together, and it's expensive. It's, I don't know, a small jar is like 45 bucks. But a little goes a really long way. So like on a tabletop, you might use like a teaspoon. So it's a little bit goes a long way. And so something like this would not take very much to get it done. All right, I'm gonna get this set up so that my back, my front, I wanna get my, so it's really funny. I'm feeling this side of the wood and then this side, it's just night and day how smooth that is after all of that sanding, which Lord knows it should be. All right, the other thing I need to do is get, y'all are like, where is he? He's way over there. I'm gonna get my clamps and get set up for that because we need some clamps for this. And I'm gonna use the big ones. So we need the big Revos from Bessie. And then I need a couple of long clamps that I use the little quick grips like this to clamp the sides. So you shall see that in just a moment. I do not glue the middle piece in. I will set it inside of the dado slot to keep the bait bowing out while it's in the clamps. But I don't glue that in till later because we need to shorten the middle piece based on how much material we remove for putting the base bottom in, the piece of plywood that fits in the bottom. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, come back later and I'll explain the whole thing. But anyway, right now I just need hand grips facing out and down. We have our slots facing each other so that these will all be glued in the same direction. And then just need our glue. I don't know what's up with these glue bottles, man. They seem like they get harder and harder to use. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's a glue bottle, for goodness sakes. All right, I'm just gonna put a little on this side, a little on this side, and we're gonna use the best glue spreader in the world. And yes, I do this on my table saw. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, don't do it on your table saw. You get glue on your table saw. It's okay. It's waxed and any glue squeeze out that comes out I clean up. But the big thing is it's flat. It's a very flat reference surface for me, and that is, when I'm putting these together, that's one of those important things where, you know, if you get it flat to start with, you'll have a nice square box to end up with. So I'm getting glue all the way down into the corner and on both sides. So on the side here and then the wider side down here. So you want to make sure you get both of those surfaces covered in glue as best you can, because that will give you your best glue joint. So starting with a little, put it in there, spread it with the finger, and then I squeeze it into the joint, and then make sure I get it on the side here. And it's end grain, so it's going to suck some of it up, but that's okay. This is long grain, that's end grain. The funny thing is we're gluing long grain to end grain and end grain to long grain. Because when you think about the way these feet set in, this is end grain, which is going to press into this long grain. And this is long grain, but it's going to set against this end grain. So, you know, but that's why I said I like the little tiny little ridges that are left in here, the little score marks from the saw, because they give a little bit of extra space in there for the glue to sit in. And believe it or not, this is a really strong joint. I've never had one of these bust, and I've made a lot of them. So typically if something screws up, it's my fault, not the fault of the glue joint. All right, I have all of this glued, and now I just need to assemble. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I've got the pieces going in the right spots. Keeping them, like I said, I want to keep them flat. Make sure I've got the end pieces with the handles down. There's a handle right there. The other handle is going to go face out and go in this side. And I'm going to close this up and get them squared up as best I can, just like this. Then what I will do is preliminarily clamp them. Hey, I said the word. From the side. I'm not doing a direct, this is not my final clamping position for this. All this is going to do is put pressure in here and hold the thing together. That's all I want to do at this point in time, is hold it together, because I have to lift this up and set it on the other clamps. And this will just keep those side pieces from sliding out. And the other thing is, you don't want those side pieces to slip down, because that will give you an uneven bottom, and that's kind of the whole point of doing it on the table saw, is that we have a nice flat bottom and requires minimal fixing after the fact. So now what I'm going to do, is get a back cramp. Grab this, put it in here. Of course, this one's not out far enough. There we go. All right. So I spread these out, and then hopefully you can see where this 1/4 inch edge is. I put that just to the outside of that clamping foot, and then I draw this in. And the whole point of this is that I want the clamping force on this end board, not on the long board. So by going just inside of that line, I can put the clamping force on here, and then we're pushing those boards together and getting a nice glue joint there. I'm not going to squeeze it down too far. I'm just trying to get it lined up right now. Bring this one in. Go. All right. And just getting those joints to close up. Now I can check the bottoms, make sure I don't have anything sticking out and being weird down there. And then I can reposition this clamp to get better clamping pressure across the length, or the width, or however you want to say it, of the board. Like that. And same thing here. Okay, so now I've got good clamping pressure across here. So I'm clamping in on the sides and getting it there. I'm clamping in long ways. getting it there. And then what I will do, take my middle piece and just set it inside that dado joint like this. And I can see that it's not, I've got about, I don't know, 1/16 or maybe a little bit more space right there. And that's just due to the fact that I'm squeezing it this way, so the ends tend to bow out. So all I'm going to do, kind of even that up, is just clamp across here and squeeze that in. And that will hold the board straight. And I can check that by using my square and just checking in the corners and seeing that my box is square. That's the whole goal here, is to have a nice square box, if you will. I alternate between saying box and base, but I mean the same thing each time. All right, I'm going to set this over to the side because it now needs to sit here in these clamps for a day at least, or 2 days, you know, because I'll leave it there till you come back. Maybe not. Maybe I'll actually move over and do some other ones tomorrow, because we do have all this other stuff that we're going to do. But let me get these clamps up here, because we use these already, so they should be here and ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to get our other pieces over here. Lamp these in place as well. So I'll set them up once again, get my handles, face them out. Now, whatever you can do to make your life easier, you know, in terms of marking your stuff and knowing orientations and stuff, I say go ahead and do it, because it'll just do things like glue ups and stuff will come together much better. And you're going to spend less time scratching your head. Like, I just look at the front and I like, okay, there's an F. It's faced this way. So I know which way is up and I know which way is supposed to be facing out. And that makes life a lot easier instead of having to relook at things over and over again. Especially on boards like this, where there's not a slot cut for that storage wall, space wall. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, which way is up? Well, I have my little F on there, so I know exactly which way is up, because I've already predetermined that. So like I said, just do little things like that, or that's what I do. That's my little word of advice, for what it's worth, which is not much. But, you know, my mama used to always say, work smarter, not harder. I don't think she ever actually said that. But if she thought about it, she probably would, because my mom's a smart cookie. So, but that's what I always used to tell my employees. Just work smarter, not harder. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time when there's already a wheel to be used. All right. Clean the glue off my fingers, and then we will put this in the clamps. I do not have any side clamps here, so I need to get a couple of those, the small clamps. Grab a couple of those, but in the meantime, I can just set this in place. Excuse me for the frog in the throat. I can set these in place, which will get the glue kind of started. You know, just kind of set it. It's not going to be perfect, but we'll get it going there. And then I have to find out which clamps I want to use for doing the sides. I think I'm going to use these gear clamps because they're pretty good. I wish I had a couple more sets of those quick grips that were that wide. I've got shorter ones, but I don't have any that are that wide. All right, this is kind of a pain. Hang on, I need this over here. There we go. And let me pull this back so I make sure that it's set up right. Now we'll take this, set it on here, give it a little squeeze. That's all she wrote. Same thing here. Like I said, these will be readjusted. I just need to hold these in place. I don't need to do super squeezing on them or anything. Just needs to hold it in place and hold it flat. See, and that's the other thing is I'm going to loosen this for a second, and I'm going to get this flattened out as best I can in here to get these pieces down against the table. Like that. Ah! Stop it! All right, there we go. I just want these to be nice and flat against the table when I squeeze them together. Because like I said, the flatter it starts off, the less work I have to do after the glue has dried in terms of like shaving down corners and such to get them to lay flat. All right, you're never going to defeat it all the way, but if you can get close with some good clamping and a flat tabletop, it does take a lot of the work out of it. All right, squeeze this one in a little bit. Put this one here, get it lined up just to the inside. Get it clamping. All right, so now I will clamp these a little harder, close those up, and then I'm going to readjust these to get the clamping pressure right through the middle of this thing. That should be good. Come down here. Right there. I can get a lot of clamping pressure with these. The gear clamps are really good. There we go. So that is the clamping process for these, for a short one and a long one. And that's all she wrote. So like I said, these get set to the side, and then usually for a day, I will let them sit, and then they are ready to come out. And yeah. All right, now I can turn my attention to, well, it's 1:18. Really don't have that much time left, do we? But I need to turn my attention to some of these other boards over here to figure out what is going to come from them. This one right here, this long board, I'm going to bring it over so you can see, which is Sapele. This one I think I've already marked out, or I had. It may have been planed away. No, so this one has. This one has marks on there. So out of this one board, I am going to get one long base with storage, one large base with storage. I've already put some pencil marks on here. I'm going to grab my pencil again, and what I need to do is cut the end of this board, because it still has a factory cut on the end of it. I say factory, it's a mill, but whatever. And it's not necessarily square, so I don't want to measure off of that end cut right there. I want to get a fresh end cut so that I can then measure boards and get them to the proper dimension. Problem is, this thing is so long that I think what I'm going to do is cut this one just a little long and then go back and trim that edge, because sticking it on my machine over there is a pain in the rear. So if I'm making a long board, or a long base, my dimensions are 21 inches by 8 5/8 inches. So I'm going to cut this just a little long. I know I've got a little bit of extra space on here, so I'm going to cut this at 21 1/4 inches. You know what? I'm going to go 21 1/8 because I'm pretty sure that I can get, I've got more than 1/8 of an inch of spare on this board. And then I'll get this exactly cut down to 21 inches. So I'm going to take this over to the miter saw, the compound miter saw over here. I do need to plug it in, and I need to put some dust collection on it. Those are the two requirements for this thing, especially the dust collection, because man, this thing does a piss poor job of dust collection. And if you have nothing on there, it's horrible. So I'm going to cut a length of this board now. I've got this long board set up over here. I'm going to cut a length off of here, and then we'll come back and measure 21 inches and cut it down to the exact size. So let me do that. You can see if I went to go just try to trim the edge, this thing would be sticking into my table or into my bandsaw over there. We don't want that. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off right here, or I'm going to cut this piece down. And then we will have a shorter board that I can bring back to the table here and do some measurements on and get it a little bit more precise. Let me get my tools over here. And then we can use that to cut a second board. All right. So one cut. All right, nice clean edge. The only thing that you have to watch with the sapele is it's a little splintery. I mean, you can't really avoid that, but just be careful with it because you don't want to catch one of those splinters. Now I will go from this edge that I just cut, which I know is square. I'm going to measure off my 21 inches exactly, and then we will trim down to that. Okay, get this marked. And we will go clean this up over at the saw after I get rid of this big long board over here. We'll leave it right there because we're going to cut another one out of that board in just a second. But for right now, just going to get right to the edge of that line. Let's trim that up. All right, I'm just going to take a quick measurement on here just to make sure I didn't screw anything up. Heaven forbid. 21 inches on the button. God, I love it when things work out. Now I'm going to put this other board in here and cut another 21-inch piece. To line up the left edge of my boards and then pull this through, and then I'm going to slide it back until the teeth just touch the inside edge here, and that lets me know I'm going to be cutting in the same spot on the board underneath. I don't want to push hard, you just want to make contact. All I want to do. Turn my fan on, or my dust. All right, so with that done, I now have the two long pieces. It's the easy part. Now I need to look at cutting the, let's clean off the splinters off the edge here. I need to get my stuff. I need to figure out now, okay, how do I want to do the joint around here? Do I want to do box joints, or just want to stick with my traditional stuff? And as much as I want to do box joints, I don't want to mess with screwing up quality wood. I'd rather screw up a piece of cherry or a piece of oak where it's just easier and less expensive if something does happen. I mean, the sapele is not crazy expensive, but it is what I would call, like I said, I call these premium woods. And so as you saw from what I just did with my other pieces, it's really easy for me to do. And I have the routine down. So, ooh, I am dusty. I think just to be sure. It's probably a good thing for me to do my traditional joinery on these higher end bases and then practice some new joinery. I'm going to turn my dust fan on here. Practice some different stuff, different joinery on more affordable wood choices, let's say. So let me just verify. I believe I need an 8 1/8 inch times 3, and that is the case. So 8 1/8 inches. So I'm going to cut one, then use that as my measuring tool for the other two. Like 63 degrees outside. That's balmy. All right, so I've got my line here marked. Take this over to the saw, and we're going to cut one of these out. Double check the measurement, then we'll bring it back and use that as the template for cutting the next two. Here should be. Like this real quick. Zoinks! Right on the money. All right, let's get another one. And if you've been watching for any period of time, you know that I'm a big fan of minimizing waste and maximizing yield. And this is the material for one base out of that board. This is what's left over. That is acceptable waste to me. So this is one, right? This was the easy one. I already knew that was going to work out. Not what I was worried about. So now I need to look at some of these others. Take my ears off here. I need to look at some of these others and see exactly what I can yield out of these. And I need definitely need my tape measure over here. Probably my pencil and my square. All right. So I think, let me see, did I write anything on this one? So I wrote on this one, then I trimmed it down. But I think this one can be a long base right here. This is walnut, because I have this secondary piece right here that I believe, did I write anything on here? I believe this is going to be the 3 8 1/8 inch pieces, and this will be the 2 long pieces. Now this does have, this was from a piece of what's called rustic walnut. So there are a few issues with it. It's got some areas here that just need to be cleaned out. It's got a couple little, like there's a little knot hole right there, which needs to be cleaned out. And generally, I will clean these out with a couple of different tools, and then I'm going to fill them with black CA glue, which basically the same as filling them with black epoxy. But it just makes them look cleaner. And this has a little knot down at this end right here, which is chipped. I'll put that on the inside on the bottom, and that way when I route out for my table bottom, this little mark will probably just go right away. So let's make sure we've got enough space here. Like I said, this needs to be, do I have a clean edge here? I don't know if I have a clean edge cut here. Let me cut an edge off of here really quick so I can get some measurements, and then we can get this trimmed down to size as well. So I'm just going to bring this over to the saw that you can't see right now. Maybe. I got to grab my ears anyway. So I'll switch you over here. You can see I'm going to just bring this over, and all I'm going to do is trim the edge off of this thing so that I can use my ruler to get some good, accurate measurements. That's all we needed for that. Slide this out and bring it back. Okay, that's much better. All right. So for that long one, like I said, we needed 21 inches for each of the long sides, which means 42 inches. So we are good. If I take it off of, actually, you know, if I take it off of this end of the board, I don't even have to mess with this little anomaly type thing. So I'm going to mark the first 21 here, and then we will cut that, and I'll once again use that mark for cutting up the second board. Now, since I have two boards here, one that I'm going to use for the ends, basically I'm going to have, let me mark this out here. Yeah, I'll have about 7 inches on the end of this board, which isn't good for me for anything when I cut this second long one out. So I will take all of the 8 1/8 inch pieces out of this board, which that is a clean, good cut on this one. Let me just check it. Yep, that's nice and square. So I can already do a measurement off of this board, and we will mark 8 1/8 inches. So basically 24 3/8 plus 1/4 inch. So this board's 26 inches long, so more than long enough to get those 3 pieces out. So I'm going to mark this one 8 1/8. And then I will take both of these boards over and get our final yield out of them at the saw. It's just easier if I mark them now, and then we can get them cut. Okay, back over to the saw. Set the short one here for a moment, and we will cut these long boards. Got that face really nice on there. Alrighty. So here's my minimal waste out of this one. So you can see that's not too bad, right? And these are my 3 long pieces, which are all the same length. So there is my second set. Stack these up like this. So that's my second set right there. Now for the rest of these are not long boards. Most of these are actually kind of short. And so I think what I had come up with was doing a standard, well, not a standard, but a regular base without a storage compartment. And then doing those for 3/4 inch bases, which allows me really to get almost a complete base out of every one of these pieces of wood. So I don't have to double up on anything. I can actually get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them out of the boards I have here. So those are 13 1/4 inches long. If I do that, this will just be a rough calculation here, but bear with me for a moment. Let's see here. Oh, there goes my sander. Hang on a second. I don't want that flipped upside down on the bottom of the floor here. There we go. So 13 3/4 inches is the long side. So if I measure 13 3/4, right? 13 3/4, and then I add 1/8 of an inch because that's the kerf that makes the cut. Kerf of the saw. So I'll do another 13 3/4. And then add another 1/8 of an inch. So that gives me my 2, that's a little less than 28 inches to give me my 2 my 2 front pieces. Then I need 7 11/16. I figured these out already ahead of time, so they are what they are. So 7 11/16. It's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Plus 1/8 of an inch there, and then one more that is 7 11/16. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, one thing I could do is I could make these longer and then use my extra piece here to do the sides, but that would give me almost this much waste that I couldn't use for anything on the board. And that's kind of, I don't like that. I'd rather get, a board this long, I can't do anything with. I can't sell it. I can't. But if I turn a board this long into a base, well, that's $105 base right there for this board. $105 for that board. I'd rather use the whole board and get $105 than get $130 and have a big board left over that I can't do anything with. So that's where I kind of come up with this. And like I said, sometimes I get lucky and I'll have the yield, or I will make longer boards and I have a whole bunch of lumber that I can use to make short boards and long boards and continue on to the next board. I'll have a whole bunch. Like I've got a bunch of cherry down there. I've got a cherry board that's 10 inches wide. I can cut that into 3-inch strips and then just yield the heck out of that to make big bases out of. And that's what I'll end up doing with it. This stuff though, I need to maximize exactly, as much of this yield out of this board that I can get. This is 4.5 inches left over out of this one board. So honestly, it's hard to argue with that kind of money logic, at least for me. And that's kind of where I kind of go towards when I'm doing my calculations is I want to know which base I can make, because I have 4 different sizes, 4 different lengths. Well, technically 5 different lengths that I can use to maximize my yield out of a board. And that a lot of times is the determining factor for what I'm going to make. Is how much could I get out of this one board? Sometimes I go into it and I'll buy wood because I have specific stuff in mind, and I make sure that it's dimensionally long enough and wide enough to accommodate that. But sometimes I just go in and look at boards and go, oh, that's a pretty board. I want to buy that board. And then what I'm thinking is, okay, how wide is it? Because can I get 2 boards out of it? If I split it down the middle, can I get 2 boards that are at least like maybe 3 inches wide after cleanup? Okay, so that's one thought. The other is, how long is it? Well, I know at my longest, I'm looking at about 21 inches, right? So 21, and then I figure for these pieces right here, I always figure 25 inches. Because even with the kerf, if I figure 25 inches, that gives me 3 of these. So when I look for a board, I'm going to go 42 inches plus 25 inches is, what is that, 67, plus I add an inch for wiggle room. So 68 inches. If I have 68 inches of length, I know I can get one of these boards out of it. If I have a board that is 7 inches wide and 67 plus inches long, I know I can get 2 of these out of it. So sometimes when I'm buying boards, I look at it that way. Sometimes I just look at it and go, ooh, that's a pretty board right there. What can I make out of that? And that's the way I go. I just think that's pretty. What can I use that for? Now, let me show you one thing before I sign off. I did have scrap left over after doing this. Like this right here. I've got this little scrap board out of this wood, and it's really pretty. All right, what am I going to do with it? I don't know yet. But like you saw the project a while back that I made, the cutting board out of scraps. I use scraps like this to make a cutting board. This is a wood, this is Paduke. It's commonly used in cutting boards, and I will keep this and then I will use it in a cutting board or something like that just because it looks really cool. So that's why, even though I knew I couldn't get, you know, 2 boards out of the width, I knew I had enough length in there. See, here's a sapele. Look at that sapele. It's long and it's thin, but this is cutting board material. Here is same thing. Here's a piece of walnut. It's long and it's thin, but this is cutting board material. So at some point in time, I'm going to take these strips that I've been accumulating and I will make cutting boards out of them. And someone will get a really cool looking cutting board. So there you go. Wood is expensive. I hate burning my scrap. I have it down to just little teeny tiny pieces that I have in my scrap bin. They're not useful for much else, but that way, you know what? I'm figuring I'm saving money. Like even this, these were end pieces. These were side pieces that I milled off and put together to make a lid. They look pretty cool. So I just try to be as economical as I can be. And that's the way it is. But anyway, I think it's 1:45. My goodness. That daylight savings time, it's kicking our butts, isn't it? It's making things seem different. Ooh, I'm dusty dirty. I'm going to draw a line in it right here today. I'm about to lose my computer power anyway. And I'm going to go get some lunch. And Wednesday, when we come back, I'll probably have more of these end clamps. We can take stuff out of clamps and continue on. We need to put some bottoms in those and do some other stuff. So we'll continue the process. It'll be fun. And hopefully I will see you here then. So in the famous words of Bill and Ted, be awesome to each other and come back and see me on Wednesday. And hopefully I'll see you then. Take care.